I saw that.
Took them down.
They took them all down?
I did, yeah,
You did?
yeah, yesterday.
What flags? What
How come?
flags? Do we know?
Because that's the deal I made with Josh and Eversource. And I wanted them to last so I could put them up next year too. Because they were starting to fade, believe it or not.
Yeah, the wind and the weather.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not, it's not easy.
All right.
It was a little dangerous doing
I
that.
know you brought that up.
Whose equipment
I
did
have-
you use for the lifts?
Giordano Signs gave us their bucket truck, they donated it to us.
Oh,
And then Bob Hayberry and Mark, my neighbor, helped me, and Scott Wynn. And the four of us, took us about 4 hours to take them down. No, just the flag,
where you store it?
my house.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I know.
I leave them at the town garage, you
Lance
should
took
see what they
them
look
down.
like.
You know where you're gonna be
All
able
right.
to find them in spring.
That's right. They'll be
Everybody
in good
organized?
condition in my basement.
You guys ready?
Yep. Yes.
All right. Let's see what time it is, and make sure your phones are off. 7:03. All right, call to order the Monday, August 28th, 7 o'clock, regular planning and zoning meeting. And roll call, I'm George Clausen, the chairman, Peter Marchand, John Cooney, Craig Sandin is absent excused. Talked to him on Friday, and it sounded like everything's going pretty well, and then I talked to him today, and it wasn't as good, so we'll see how that works. Willie Platt, Troy Lemire, Charlene Lavoy, and Adam Quagliaroli. So, Adam, I'm gonna seat you tonight for Craig's position. And, public comment, anybody here have some? Yes, Josh?
Good evening, Josh Kelly, 103 Meadow Street, also town manager. Want to share with the commission tonight just a few words about the ordinance and regulation codification project. I know that I will be back in front of you again about this subject, but I want to make sure that it stays fresh in your mind so that when I'm back in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever the case might be, it's a little bit more readily available. So, I know I've already spoken to you a little bit about this, but I'm going to walk through from the beginning just to make sure that everybody who might be watching tonight, everybody who's listening has the opportunity to follow along, and anybody who might not have been at the last meeting can follow along too. My understanding is that back before I started as town manager, sometime in the 2019 to very early 2021 timeframe, the Board of Selectmen took a look at our ordinances, and I don't know if anybody saw them, the way that they were cataloged by the town clerk's office, and he did a great job in the town clerk's office, given the fact that they were old documents scanned as PDFs, wrangled up into, I believe it was 10 different files. But the way that we had outlined our ordinances online was not a very effective way to move forward. The Board of Selectmen decided, admittedly unilaterally, without consulting with the commissions and boards that may also be impacted by this, that they wanted to codify the ordinances, and along with that, the zoning regulations and the inland wetlands regulations. So what that means is they hired a firm, it's called General Code, you can look them up. Most towns in Connecticut use General Code at this point in time, or it's a very similar product. And they take all of the ordinances and regulations that we have, they compare them and contrast them with the general statutes, they compare and contrast them with each other to make sure that there are no repeat ordinances, there are no conflicting lines, and there's nothing in our ordinances that would go against the general statutes. Basically a legal review. And then puts them in an order and in a searchable format online. So if somebody went right now, I'm thankful the Board of Selectmen did take the time and went through each of the ordinances and decided that it was good to go ahead and post online. It's now in a searchable format along with our charter and along with the inland wetlands regulations. They were just approved at the last meeting of the Inland Wetlands Watercourses Commission. So what's in front of you now as the Planning and Zoning Commission is trying to put your regulations in this online searchable format. Not necessarily looking to change any language within your document, although there were some recommendations that came out of the legal review that was conducted on the zoning regulations that has led me to present you several months back, this is a while back now, with a red line copy of your regulations. I am asking that in the next 2 months, I think that all of you have an understanding now that I have about 2 months left with you as town manager. And certainly I'm happy to come and speak to you all about that a little bit more, but my focus right now is trying to make sure that projects that have begun are completed. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a hard look at the regulations that you have, the red line copy. Even if you aren't comfortable adopting the red line copy, I would be interested in seeing you move forward with a codified version of your unaltered regulations, to make sure that we have all of our codes in one place, in a searchable format that's as easily accessible and manageable to the public that might go and search through any given one of your regulations for any wild number of reasons. So that's a little bit about general code, a timeline, and what I'm hoping that you will be willing to do in the next couple of months. Any questions that I can answer while I'm here? Otherwise, I'll return at another meeting to speak to you while it's a formal agenda.
We'll discuss it tonight and just get something set up so that we're gonna do something or.
I have a question.
Yeah.
We've had time now, we've gone over 'em. I've spent some time on them. We just had a issue in one of our last meetings about description of a garage.
Yep.
And there's all of these descriptions that are there now that weren't there originally. And I know that one of the blaring things that happened, I found, was a commercial horse stable could only be in production and innovation. Why? I mean, that's not something we did.
So the only change.
I mean, they made significant changes.
Right,
I mean-
and so the way that they went about the changes, and I'm glad that you asked this question because it's a good clarifying point. They submitted to us, I believe it was 60 different questions, somewhere in that ballpark, after they completed their legal review. They said, here's what we found, we're not gonna change a thing unless you answer yes to this series of questions. The individuals who were in the land use office at the time did receive those questions and answered them. Whether they consulted with their various boards, commissions, and agencies, that is for them and you to discuss at a later point in time, and I
So
can get into that.
if we
in more
decide we're
detail.
gonna change these, does this mean a full-blown public hearing on?
Anything to change our regulations.
But
it's gotta
they were
go
changed
through.
without a public hearing.
Nothing's changed.
Nothing's
Well, so
actually,
nothing's adopted.
What's their
Nothing's
These are the
suggestion?
adopted.
proposed, right, this is just proposed text for your consideration. If you'd like to adopt it, you would need a public hearing. My understanding is that you would need a public hearing even if you just want to adopt the unedited, edition of your codified zoning regulations, because they would be reformatted, and that constitutes enough of a change that at least the company that we're working with is asking that you go through your whole adoption process, which includes a public hearing. Those questions that I referred to have been shared with George. He can share them with all of you at the proper moment, the proper time, but it might help you go through and understand better why are the proposed changes that you see in the red line version included. So I hope that will shed some light. Anything else?
We'll talk about it tonight and see, we
Okay.
should probably have 3 members to take a look at it and see where we're going with it. And then we can get it done and followed up. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other public input? Okay, agenda review, anything? We don't have any public hearings, we don't have any old business. New business, we've got a request for a special permit, this is PZC 23-11-1. Special permit applicant John Noon, owners John Noon and Alec. How do you pronounce your last name?
Kravchenko.
Kravchenko. Thank you. Location 21 Fairview Avenue, proposal mixed use, convert home into B&B for use to accommodate travelers and visitors to the Winston area. Well, this is a special permit application, so what we do is we set up a public hearing for that, and then at that point, you can make a presentation of how you want to do it. And do we have a plan of your property?
George?
Oh, okay, all right, it is. All right. So what we'll do is we'll set up a public hearing, which will be the next meeting, and at that point, you can elaborate on how you're gonna do it, and what you would like to accomplish, and why you need to do it.
Okay, just wanna make a note that we're gonna be out of town until the 11th of September.
So we'll do it for the second meeting in September, all right?
Should I send out the notices to my neighbors?
Yes.
That will help you with, yep. Yep.
So
And I
we'll-
did note, in an email that the parking that you had indicated on the plan was a little bit off, but you can describe it then, that's fine. Was there anything else you had a question?
No, we'll set it up for the second meeting in September, so if you plan on that, you can notify your neighbors accordingly. All right?
Thanks, John.
So with that in mind,
Lance, was there anything that wetlands needs to address on this at all? No, okay.
No,
all right. So what's our second meeting?
I'll make a motion to have a public hearing on September 25th, 2023 for PZC 23-11. Special permit, greenhouse bed and breakfast.
We have a second on that?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? All right. 6B is PZC 23-12-1, special permit and site plan approval, applicant representative David Batista, Haley Ward, in conjunction with Paul Selnow, Shadler Selnow Associates, PC, owner Winston Health Center Incorporated, location 115 Spencer Street, proposal redevelopment of Winston Health Center for housing and artisan makerspace. We've all received a couple sets of plans on this. Are you gonna be available for the first meeting in September, so we could set that up? Okay, so we need a public hearing set up for that.
Okay, I'll make a motion, schedule a public hearing for, on September 11th, 2023, PZC 23-12-1, special permit and site plan approval.
Second.
And it's been seconded by John. Any discussion of the motion? All in favor? Okay, so we'll just come in with the first meeting in September, and are you gonna do this with the video on the screen? Yeah, that's fine, that works well. Okay, good, thank you. We'll do it. All right. Other business, it says none, but I think without.
yeah, and apologize, there's a different version of the agenda, so the other business should be included, the driveway regulation. We have final proposal for the language, which I think each of you got a copy there, and I gave you a red pen with the hope that Peter would mark the heck out of it, and this will be we'll be done with it.
I've already done that.
Well, this has been reviewed for about a year, so is there anything that needs to be changed or added?
Well, reading through a page, the third page would be 3-4.
Where did that come in? Oh, here, okay, it's on the, it was handed out to us. Go ahead. Page 4?
Yeah, 3. Yeah, 3-3.4.
Yep.
Starts out with the driveway approach shall be a minimum of 10 feet wide at the street line. Then it goes, shall be a minimum of 16 feet and a maximum of 24 feet wide at the roadway edge.
So the
Which
street,
is which?
the street line is where the property's property line meets the right-of-way line. And then the edge of pavement is where.
Okay, because I mean, it kind of is confusing,
It
street
is.
line.
Yeah,
Do we want to change that to property line?
that's what it was, in one of the earlier drafts, I think
Okay.
that correction came from you or Todd.
Yeah, street line is the correct name for that line.
Okay,
Should we add that to the definitions, or is that?
so then,
Do that.
then
Why
we,
not? Because that, I think that would address what Peter's saying.
well, then, you know,
Make a
like,
definition in the
we've got all the definitions at the beginning. But put a definition, insert a definition into one point section for what is the street line. Because I know we're gonna get confusion over that with the general public, I'm sure.
Yes.
That was the only thing I had, I believe.
But why would we be consistent from the 16 to 10 feet? I mean, why?
Well, the 16, that's what it,
So you're typically gonna have a taper on your driveway.
your
coming in,
apron.
And we don't want, you know, and again, apron is the term we used to use. In this document, it's been changed to driveway approach. I personally prefer apron. I don't know where the approach, came from. But typically, you come in from the edge of pavement to the street line / property line. At the property line, we want it to have a certain width, and then, but it always has to flare out towards the, you know, edge of pavement. And you want it to be a minimum of, I think it says 14 or 16, and then a maximum of 24.
Yep,
And
16 to
again,
24.
you may exceed that with a commercial driveway or something, but for residential, that's plenty. So that's why there's a variation of how wide it can be at the road, but a minimum at the line.
At the property line, basically, the
But
town.
why would you have a wider driveway and not bring it to the road?
You have to take the corner, everybody takes the corner on an angle.
Yeah, basically at the,
So
at the street itself.
when
at
you
the
pave
pave-
apron, when we do aprons,
Yeah.
after we pave a road, there's always a radius on both sides. I mean, it's just common sense, you have to do that, because people don't come out of their driveway straight. Just doesn't happen.
George, are you saying that this is saying the apron,
So this is just a sketch. I think this came
Yeah.
from another town. So it's wider here at the road than it is down here at, say, the property line.
At the property line.
But you're
Those
saying
are
this
your
is 10
flare.
feet here, and it widens because of this.
Yeah.
So what's the red area?
Well, again, this isn't an exact representation. If it were me, in this drawing from this guy's ordinance or regulation, they wanted to create a gravel base so that if you know, went wider than the pavement, you didn't just, you know, damage the
But these are
pavement.
just driveways, it's just not
Right,
like an
these are just
access to it.
driveways.
Okay.
hey, Dave, is driveway approach the term of art now versus apron?
Yeah, I've heard it called other things too, like curb cut or whatever.
Right, right.
That driveway approach it's fine. I think I kind of talk the same language that Jim does, so
Can we just either change that to apron or put apron in paren next to it?
I don't think there's any reason to stick with driveway approach.
I would stick with apron.
On mine, I've already changed it to apron
Yeah, I
and
think
red pencil, so
So-
I'll be happy to do that for the final.
Why not? Yeah, it's a term everyone seems to be familiar
Yeah.
with, so.
Well, I don't wanna see this go, this has been on for a year now. So let's
Right.
figure it out, and then let's figure that is this what we want, then let's do it.
I got something.
Go ahead.
Under section 1.11, reconstruction, we're setting ourselves up here for like thousands of applications a year probably, or, you know, if you're simply repaving your driveway, I mean, you should still get a permit, but it shouldn't cost you anything. In my town, we give out driveway permits for repaving, which is it's considered reconstruction because you have to replace the base too.
Sure.
If you're gonna do that, if you're gonna spend the money on the asphalt, you should replace the base, 18 inches. But, you know, repaving a driveway is very expensive to begin with. So a lot of people don't do it when they need to do it to help the town. Because a lot of these driveways, and Jim could probably back me up, are causing a lot of the town issues, being in bad shape. They direct water in certain ways. You know, a lot of driveways in my town have small aprons, and the aggregate afterwards washes into my road, and then I'm constantly sweeping up messes that are not mine. Or it'll put process in the road, gravel, you know, and then I get calls because, you know, somebody's gonna get hurt or slip or fall or whatever. So it really costs the town, Public Works, a lot of aggravation. But I don't believe that we should be charging, I mean, if it still should have a permit, only because Public Works needs to go out and make sure it's not gonna cause any damage to their roads and directing water in the wrong way.
Yeah.
But we shouldn't charge for it. If you're doing something, reconstructing your driveway in a different manner than the original footprint,
Yes.
then it's gotta have a full permit. Then it needs to be engineered. It should go through a whole thing. But just simply paving, I mean, you're gonna have, you know, there's a lot of people that like to pave their driveway now and then. I plan on doing mine, you know, in the near future. So I'm not gonna pay a permit to come in here and put my driveway to back the same way it was.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's foolish. And that may deter me not to do it, because I don't know how much
So
the
what's your
permit costs. but-
suggestion, that paving or repaving come out of the definition of reconstruction? Or that?
Yeah, I don't think repaving should be part of reconstruction. If you're changing the footprint, or you're changing the percentage of grade, or you're expanding the driveway more than its original width, that's reconstruction. But simple maintenance is repaving your driveway.
All right, so it says right now, reconstruction shall mean activities which go above and beyond routine maintenance. So how do we
Right, but if
slice
you
that
look-
one to put
If
just
you look under
repaving?
routine maintenance, an existing driveway can be put back brand new, but you can't pave on top of it without a permit.
So I would think the question would be in section 2.1, should reconstruct be removed from that section?
I believe so.
No, in 2.1?
Yeah.
2.1.
Yes,
If you're
under
gonna
permits.
reconstruct it,
Under permits, section 2.
yeah, but if you're gonna reconstruct it, you need a permit, right?
Or
Or should
saying
they change
reconstruction is
footprints?
just
Or,
preferred.
or maybe limited to paving, repaving or something, that we could word it that way.
So at 2.1, it says no person shall reconstruct, so you say just repave?
Repave is later in the sentence.
Yeah. Limited to paving or repaving, remove or replace, or changing the footprint of an existing driveway.
Well, that's simply a general statement saying if you're doing anything, you gotta get a permit.
Right.
Right.
It doesn't say you have to pay for it, that's
It
later on.
does under permits, it says you have to pay for it.
Later on, it says, section 10 talks about a permit, fee for any application for a driveway permit.
So, we shouldn't be.
So somehow you're asking, saying we should segregate that out.
Yes.
Makes
If it's a new driveway, then it definitely has to have a permit and a bond for
If it's
the apron.
changing, yeah, the whole configuration.
But I mean, you know, there's a short window in the paving world, okay, for time-wise. So if somebody wants to repave their driveway, and of course, like I said, re-gravel it underneath, because that's what makes them fail, if it's not, doesn't have a good base. So that person's gonna have to come see Jim, get a permit, maybe come in front of this board. I mean, the clock is ticking, tick, 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 now we're into November, and nobody wants to get their driveway paved in November because it doesn't do good at that time of year. You wanna pave early. So to me, it's a waste to have somebody just to pave their driveway. I'm saying, if you change it, I agree with that 100%. Or if
Now,
it's gonna
okay, so why
affect.
can't it stay like it is?
Don't we already require a permit for paving? I think
Yes and
that's
no.
been said before.
I think the answer to that is yes.
Okay.
The problem is, how many times do you see anyone pave a driveway without redoing the base? Almost never.
Never.
Because the cost of the asphalt is what is the main cost.
Correct.
So they're not gonna put it over a crappy base
Right.
or over cracked asphalt. That's why, if you're gonna pave it, you're gonna be doing a base, which means it's a new driveway, which means you need a permit. And the permit isn't just for the surface or changing the footprint. That's when you get a hold of the issues that you're talking about, the gravel washing out. You make sure that, you know, they've got the proper size culvert, or they have stabilized the banks, you know. That's where that's the only way. If you don't have a permit for that, those problems are gonna just continue on forever.
Right.
This is our chance to nip those in the bud.
But you should do it, that it doesn't cost anything, so more people will do it, for one, without, you know, doing it on their own.
I think
The
the
paving contractors will do it.
It's not the money, it's the time. If they have to,
Yeah.
if they have to apply for a permit, they just don't.
Right.
I mean, the fee is
And they don't wanna hear it.
Right?
That's the fee for the permit,
And it
$50.
used to
If
be
you're doing a
25.
$5,000 driveway, $50 is
Well, and you were-
1%?
Also talking about online permitting, just like they
Oh,
have
yeah.
with the building.
Yeah.
So it should come right through planning and zoning office.
Right.
And unless there's major reconstruction, it should be able to be approved by the zoning
Yeah,
enforcement officer.
the zoning officers should also
Right.
be involved in this.
I agree.
instead of Jim. I mean, you don't have time to do what you do now.
So if you,
So,
Well, Jim needs to be on there for inspection.
so,
if it- if
so the way this has been constructed is the permits go to planning and zoning, not public works anymore.
Right.
And they go to you guys because, and you guys will seek, well, the agent will seek my approval on what's in the right of way, because that's what matters to public works. So that's, just like I do like any other zoning application, I just write up my little review saying, this, and, we work together and they push it through. But the rest of that, because it's really a land use issue, what happens beyond beyond that street line, end of apron, permeable surface, lot coverage, steep slopes, all that stuff. So that's why that's why it's better to have it
In there.
in the zoning, and you can catch these things ahead of time. The problem is gonna be, the same problem is gonna exist whether the permits are coming to me or the permits are going to you. Contractors just don't do it.
Right.
And part of it is because not every town requires it, and part of it is because they don't want anyone to say no. They bid a job, they get a job, they don't wanna lose that, so they just pull the trigger and go, because they don't have any stake in the game, it's the
Right.
property owner
Right.
who has the responsibility for the permitting. So that's where,
And there's no penalty in here for not seeking a permit.
well,
Oh, yeah, I see.
there
7.
is,
Yeah.
finally.
Yeah.
And one of the big problems that we have now is there's, the document we have is so poorly written, you can barely understand it. And second, there's zero enforcement mechanism.
Right.
So here, this is much more clearly defined.
Yeah.
And there's an enforcement mechanism. Again, I've been a contractor, I know the hassles of getting permits. I wasted years of my life waiting for permits.
Now, how about now with the process online? Would a driveway permit be a little more expeditiously done than,
The only
the health
problem-
center?
The only problem is that you guys
Project?
don't, I'm available for a driveway permit
Anytime.
anytime you guys have set meetings.
So, but wouldn't that be, as you said before, the job of the ZEO to
So it
field
would-
those kinds of permits?
Right.
That's correct.
And it would be, the no-brainer ones where you're not changing the footprint, you're just
Routine permits.
routine permits.
Yeah.
We go from that office to your office. Yeah, well,
That
so,
makes sense, as long as that's
It's not
clear.
major changes to the
And there's
footprint.
several driveway contractors that pull permits every time, and it's not a hassle for them, they do it, they figured it out. And then there's those that just don't wanna do it.
Well, there's a learning process, but that's why we've got a new enforcement person, and we've gotta be that way, and it's gonna come around, it's not gonna happen overnight.
And, yeah, right, and it will, and I suggest we send out something to the driveway contractors in the
Yeah.
area saying,
Yeah.
hey, this is the new
Good point.
process.
Yep.
Good
And
point.
the ordinance that they get. And I've talked with 3 or 4 different driveway contractors on top of the experience I've had putting driveways in over the years. A, to find out what other towns do, and, B, to find out, where do they run into snags. Most of them, what they said to me, for the most part, was, completely new driveways, they require an engineering, plan, just as Troy was saying. Minor changes to the footprint, no permit, same footprint, no permit. But then you never catch up to the problems.
right.
That's
Well,
what.
yeah, and if you've got a problem driveway, where you've got a water problem now, and it's just gonna be total, repaved the same way, you're gonna have the same problem afterwards.
And, Troy's point, if you have a gravel driveway, you can just keep re-graveling it. And that does kind of make his point about why do you need one for repaving, but,
The gravel driveways give me more problems than the paved driveways.
most guys are just topping a gravel driveway and topping it and topping it.
Right, but they don't
And that's
roll it, they're
routine
homeowners,
maintenance.
they do it themselves.
Yeah, some people do, yeah.
But you're constantly dealing with some of these things.
I'm constantly dealing with driveway issues.
So am I, George, but, I mean,
And he's right, it's the gravel driveways that are the worst.
So how do you get that squared away? So that, somebody's gotta be responsible for that, and why should the town be paying for that all the time?
there's nothing you can do.
It's, I agree, I wish there was a better way, I just haven't figured it out.
Neither have I, buddy.
If there's anybody I've been asking.
You can't force somebody to pave their driveway.
I mean, you could, but who's gonna?
Well, you have to charge them for the cleanup.
Yeah, right.
It's not
You have
How
to
do you
go
do
out and-
that? How do you do that? We don't have an you gotta have an ordinance?
Well, you could write it into the regs, that's.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
you could.
But it's something that's not standard operating procedure, that you gotta clean up somebody's mess that didn't do the driveway properly.
What they used to do prior to me taking this position, when a driveway washed out, Public Works would get called, they'd go and they'd clear it, and they'd put it back in the guy's driveway,
I do that.
right?
Yeah.
I changed that. We scoop it up, we put it in the truck, we take it away,
They gotta buy more.
right? I put it in my pile and I reuse it, and that's gotten us a little bit of progress, so. There you
I
go.
didn't think of that, Jim. I usually put it back in their driveway,
So-
in a pile.
And
I
they're-
don't rake it out.
And they're happy to have it, so you've given it,
Well,
yeah.
he's right.
This is
Now you're
good,
giving it
yeah.
back to them, so they don't have to buy none. Now
Right.
they're, yeah.
So, we've seen a little bit of improvement because of that. But, again, there's always gonna be, there's always gonna be, how far do you wanna go? How little do you wanna go? The subcommittee thought this was a pretty good place to strike the balance. I think it's a pretty good place to strike the balance, having been on all sides of it. Public Works, contracting, driveway owner, getting permits, and enforcing the permits. So to me, that's what makes, this is where I drew the line, and the subcommittee pretty much agreed. Again, being a regulation, should you find that
Yeah.
it's
Go
not
back and
working
change
out,
it.
we can tweak it without it becoming a federal process like
That's-
an ordinance. which-
Well, that's the important part.
Yeah,
I think
where,
it's-
once it becomes a regulation and we see how it works, after 6 months, we're gonna find problems where we need to tweak it.
Right.
We
But
know
now,
that.
what's the process now? Does the selectmen have to do something to get rid of this? Or do we have to do this
So
first?
it's currently an ordinance.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think what you would do is, we've got a few things that we all still have questions on, but, I think you guys would say, okay, we're happy with this, give us the final draft.
Well, then we have to have a public hearing.
Yeah, we gotta set up a
And
public hearing.
once we have
but
a
I think-
final thing, we have a public
And then
hearing,
You adopt it, and then the selectmen will make their vote
Okay, to clear up.
Rescind
the-
their ordinance.
to rescind that
Okay.
ordinance.
So what does it do? What are the problems that you see on this that we have?
So
here, Jim?
the big issues that I see and
last couple of pages.
is, who do we hold responsible for the ordinance? Because we've got multiple parties in
Well, it's
play.
not an ordinance, it's be a
I'm sorry,
regulation.
thank you. I've been saying that for so long.
Yeah.
So, who do we hold responsible to follow the regulations? Is it the property owner? Is it the contractor? What happens if you have a right of way? You own the property, but I have a right of way. I put in a driveway, I can't hold you responsible for something I did.
Well, anybody that's got a piece of property that's got rights of way and all that business, it's a combined problem that they've gotta deal with, so that if there's a right of way that's included where the driveway is, it would have, both of these people would have to be involved with signing off in the application, I would think.
Okay.
I mean, that's typically when all this development I've done, when we've got rights of way, we gotta get people that are involved in that title to sign off on it, or you're violating their rights,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, because currently, the ordinance we have now doesn't even mention that. I have no idea when somebody comes to me, and I'm not always comfortable with that either. So both both parties.
Yes. All parties that are
Anybody
involved
that
in the
owns
title.
the property or right of way is
Correct.
responsible for.
That's correct. So where does that
I
come in?
believe that's the law anyway.
Yeah, but it's,
Yeah.
it's nice to have it
Yeah,
clearly
yeah, just
stated.
put it in the, reg, yeah.
I don't know, I just found out, the only reason why I mentioned it is because I've been doing this also. And I found out that, the things I don't charge for, people come to me. If I charge for them, they hide from me. So,
I
In the
completely
driveway.
agree with that.
the driveway
That's
thing, I
normal.
don't charge.
That's human.
If I didn't
nature.
need to have a permit fee for driveways, I'd be happy with it. But I do think
permits, but then I don't charge them for it. So there is a legal document, and I check them, you know.
Is that discretionary, or there's no fee set up?
No fee whatsoever. They call, and they call town hall, tell them what they're gonna do. Town hall says, you gotta come down, fill out a form, Troy will go look at it. So they fill out the form, I get the form, I go out, I look at the driveway, if I don't have any problems, done deal, and then I sign off at the end. No money's handed, and I noticed that since we stopped charging for stuff like that,
You get more response.
more people are coming in and do it. And if I see something going, I'm driving down the road, and I see somebody doing a driveway, I'll pull right in, talk to the owner, you gotta go to the town hall, get a permit. Well, how much is that gonna cost? Nothing. Oh, okay, I'll take care of that tomorrow.
I
You know what I'm saying?
Yep, I do. Yep, I really do.
So why are we $50 fee? It's kind of
That's for a new that's for
new
an
stuff.
application for a,
That was for everything.
That was
yeah,
everything.
I think you should just do it for an application for either, anything that's modified from the original
Yeah.
footprint or new construction. Because we do charge for that, because that takes more time.
Sure.
Because there's engineer
Well,
plans you
there's
have to go
review
over.
that has to be
Yeah,
undertaken, sure. That's not much of a fee.
And planning and zoning, basically you can weed out and help Jimmy by taking care of the easy ones. If there's any issues that you see, Jeff, you can, alert Jimmy and then he can get involved. But, a lot of this stuff is cut and dry, it's a waste of time to drive up there and back. So, if there's no issues, I mean, Jimmy's got enough to do.
Again,
I know, because I'm doing it too.
the question comes in about, when somebody has an existing driveway, and they wanna repave it, re-gravel it, redo, whatever they wanna do with it. And it's got really crappy sight lines. This is an opportunity to fix those sight lines, it's public.
Possibly. I mean,
Right.
it doesn't mean you're gonna be
Right.
able to.
You can't force them to cut their trees either.
Yes, you can.
I never do it.
On their property? In the driveway?
In the right of way.
In the right of way,
Whatever it takes to get the safe sight lines. That's why this, DOT does it all the time, that's why. they have
I'd like you to come to Norfolk and tell these people that they have to cut trees in their.
Well, let's
I'd be
get this-
hung.
Let's move it along, so. we
Yeah,
get-
so-
But, the whole thing is about, it's not just about what's easiest for the applicant, it's what's best for public safety. If
Exactly.
you have-
I agree.
If you have a driveway that has a really crappy, we did this over on Danbury Quarter Road.
Yep.
Fortunately, the guy was a contractor, and I told him, what the issue was and why, he's like, oh, yeah, that is crappy. And he fixed it, he's like, yeah, it's a no-brainer. He didn't do it until he was asked to do it, But
But that's the whole issue, why we need this.
that's why it's not just a slam dunk
Yeah.
of, something that's existing.
Sure.
And believe me, I wish it was, because, there's, between, zoning and myself, there's not an abundance of time to go looking at these
Sure.
things.
Yeah.
But it is gonna be a lot easier job, because I think we've really streamlined, at least the way it's written, we've streamlined, people know what needs a permit, what doesn't now. It's pretty cut and dry. It's,
Okay.
it's much more clear. You're always gonna have some gray area.
Well, it's always, once you get it in here, if we see problems with it, we can always
sure.
modify it.
Um, I put in here that the permits will be valid for 1 year. Currently, they're only 6
What
months.
number are you on?
2.4. Currently, they are only 6 months. I put it in for 1 year, and then I also said we could continue it for another year, should you have a big project and you don't wanna pave until the project is done. If you're not done in 2 years, that project's big enough that you can afford to do another permit. But, I think a year, sometimes it takes you that long to get your permits, and, so that was one change, and so, do you have the draft that everything's got the highlights on it? Or does that one never make it to you? Those are the issues that the
You
subcommittee.
mean in bold letters?
No,
No.
no, I highlighted stuff
Okay,
in yellow
no,
that I wanted to
okay,
touch on.
yep.
I've got a copy of it.
Yeah.
Off the deal.
That was the one I emailed some time ago, but it wasn't the one that we just cleaned up the other day. So I'm just going through those highlights. Most of them were common, you know, who's the property owner get, or the permittee, or, you know, the right-of-way owner, blah, blah, blah. That was a really common one. But we wanted to double check with the commission before we committed to 1 year. If 1 year works for you guys, it works for me.
Yeah, I would say.
Okay.
it's not-
So I got a question on 2.5, Jimmy. Why is it a minimum of 5,000 cash bond? Because the town's only responsible for the apron. We do a $750, I think, that's what it's costing me to do an apron nowadays. Used to be 500, now it's $750.
That was the language that was in the last, in the ordinance, so we kept it. That, you could do a cash or a surety bond, but surety bonds are,
Again, I mean, the average person, now you
Yeah, but his
not only have to
point-
pay for a permit,
Yeah, his point is that,
you gotta pay $5,000 and get your money back when the driveway's done.
Yeah.
If I had $5,000, I'd had my driveway done already. You know what I'm saying? That's a lot. I mean, most driveways cost $5,000. So,
most in-town driveways.
yeah, so I mean, now you're not, the town is not responsible for the entire driveway. The reason of the bonding is for what is town property, which would be considered the apron
Access
or
to
the
the
access to
road,
the
yeah.
thing. So to me, that's high.
You have a problem, you gotta clean it up, you gotta change a grade on it, you've gotta, you know, fix a sight line, you can eat up $5,000 in a heartbeat.
Right, but why would the town do that? We don't do driveways. I would
Well,
not,
somebody puts one in, they get a permit, they put it in.
well, you make them
they
tear it
don't-
out. That's what zoning does.
Well,
The
so
town
there
should
you
have,
go. See, I never had any kind
Right.
of authority or enforcement ability, so
Right.
this is why we're talking to a whole
Yep.
committee.
yeah.
So what's your suggestion, 750?
yeah, you gotta cover whatever it costs the town to do whatever. I would go, I mean, the minimum maybe 1,000, cause you gotta maybe put some gravel under it or something, you know.
I think you want at least 1,000.
You don't want it to cost
Now,
the
again,
town money.
this is a minimum, I don't mind dropping a minimum because we can,
Right.
you know.
You can
look at
adjust it.
something
We can
that's
adjust it, but go to 1,000, I
significant.
think.
We're doing a giant cut
Right.
at the entrance,
Correct.
thousands are not enough.
Yeah,
Right.
no way.
So you wanna change that. to
Minimum 1,000.
Minimum of 1,000,
Right.
yeah.
Okay?
'Cause it's, right in there, it can be increased
Yep.
Yeah.
by
Well,
us.
that's up to, that's up to whoever checks it out.
Well, it says it in there, sentence 2.
Yep.
Does everybody agree that's a lot of money to come up with?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna prevent people from making an application.
Yes.
Correct.
So, this is the minimum for when you get the permit. So, if I'm doing routine maintenance or, let's see, minor reconstruction,
You don't need
and
a
I'm
permit.
repaving it, I need a permit and the cash bond to go with it.
Well, routine maintenance doesn't require a permit, so you wouldn't have to post a
But-
bond. But yes, if you were,
Paving.
you know, paving, repaving, changing the footprint, removal of a, you know, if you had a gravel driveway, removing the existing base. Yep,
Even though you're not changing the shape of the driveway. All right, 'cause I know, yeah, that's reduced that. That's big chunk on paving, if you're just gonna repave your driveway. You know, you got the 5,000 for your driveway, 5,000 for the bond.
yeah, I
That's,
think we.
No, we
We
just-
should,
Yeah, we
for
agreed to
1,000,
reduced it to
as a minimum,
yeah.
if it
I mean,
needs
You
to.
change it to a minimum.
Even that's a lot to have to sit on. I mean, I don't know how many people got extra grand hanging around to sit in the town for a month, but, you know, you do have to protect yourself for at least the apron portion.
Well, that's the problem. We don't want the town paying for something like
Right.
this.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you know, back in the day, you know, an apron was cheaper. Now it's, I don't know what they're charging you, but I get like $750 an apron. Is that what they're?
Yeah, I mean, again, you're setting a minimum bond. If someone, you know, to their point, if you're doing reconstruction, you're taking out the aggregate base of a gravel driveway, you're not gonna pave it. You know, do you put $500 just to keep them honest? Do you do maybe $200, at that point, it's hardly worth
Yeah.
the cost of processing the payment and returning it.
Sure.
Right.
So,
That should be open-ended by planning and zoning determination or something. By the CEO,
Well, we don't wanna make this
The-
thing
the
so
bond?
cumbersome that,
The bond?
if it needs a
Okay,
bond.
you know what kind of trouble you run into that, when you start
Yeah.
putting the word discretion out there.
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
It just, to me, this stuff kind of detours people from
Making an
maintenance.
Well,
application.
do you wanna lower the bond, be lower than 1,000 then? But, you know, there's discretion to go higher,
yep,
just not to not have a bond at all. There's
Or
no
we could
discretion.
word it, instead of a bond, and say, it would be, whatever the cost of the apron would be, or
Oh, well,
whatever.
but if you don't have something in hand,
It's
but
too
then they
confusing.
say, oh, I could have my contractor do it for less than the town did it,
yeah.
you know? Well, and you should have.
Yeah.
You can try to be nicey as much as
Yeah.
you can, but in the end, the rubber does meet the road eventually. Pick a
And it
number,
doesn't
I don't
mean you're
care
gonna
what it
catch
is.
everything that goes on either. We don't have enough people to check everything that happens.
Right. Yeah, because I'm telling you right now, we have this, most people aren't even gonna apply for this permit. They're just gonna do the driveway and hope to get away with it.
Yeah, but if you spot them and then you alert them and let them go through the process, that's all. At least you got something in writing. that
I'm already
backs
not
it up.
getting most people.
Yeah, me neither, so,
Yeah, so what's gonna change?
nothing.
The thing
We've
is
got
here,
some
at least
enforcement
it-
here.
At least it defines it so that it's
Well,
enforceable.
defines it, and there's
Yeah,
enforcement.
exactly.
And we have an actual enforcement division,
There you go.
arm of the planning and
We
zoning.
have a town full of land use departments that are screaming for enforcement, and we have to give them the tools to do their job.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's, you know, most of the time, it's not a big deal, it's pretty easy. And pretty much, you know, any driveway contractor has the means, whether that's property owners usually put the cash bonds. They do it for wetlands all the time. Every single application has a cash bond.
So what else do we have, John?
So where are we at? 1,000, 500?
$1,000.
Thousand.
Any permit for a temporary access driveway will require a minimum 5,000 bond posted by the permittee to secure completion of the subsequent removal of a temporary access.
You want-
What section?
Where are you at?
What section?
6.3.
You jumped.
The other stuff is okay.
You wanna change that one to 1,000 as well?
What does temporary access mean? Does
There
that
in the
mean,
front.
In your definitions.
1-8, so it gives you temporary access, first page.
Something that'll be removed, something that's not permanent that will
They
be
don't
removed.
remove it,
in
it's
this
gonna cost you more than $1,000 to remove it.
There you go. But again, to Troy's point,
But
if.
You can't go in on
owners-
somebody's property and remove a driveway, can you?
Sure.
Oh, okay, yes, if it's built illegally or, right, you can, I mean, it's just like,
According to
take your
the-
deck down, right,
Yeah.
right, okay.
boy, I don't know, this stuff here, this is
Well,
like,
it'd be easier to keep it at 1,000 for land use people.
Well, it's a minimum anyways.
Yeah,
yeah,
So you wanna change that 5 to
I think
1,000?
I would, that's a scary number.
That's why it was highlighted in my yellow.
yeah.
And then just add that section, like the second sentence, like from 2.5, the bond amount may increase. Do we still want that in there?
Yeah, we should have that in there,
Yes.
the same as 2.5.
Yeah.
Bond amount may be increased by any amount determined
Right.
by the
I
planning
think
and zoning
if we're
commission.
reducing it to 1,000, I think that should be
Ah.
in there, yeah.
Yeah, we put it back to 1,000 and then keep the rest of the language.
Language the same.
Okay. So one of the things that we talked about as a subcommittee, and Dave, you might wanna speak on this one a little bit. In your, draft copy, you've got, in there a minimum site distance chart. Printed out. This is one that I pulled off of, ASHTO or Federal Highway Association. So, the simple one that I inserted in here when I did the document is kind of the basis of the one that you guys have. That one's just a little bit more sophisticated for if you have cars coming down a hill towards you or coming up a hill, which is a more realistic, it's more reality than not.
So you wanna replace this little one with this,
That's
the
what
one
I'm
you just
thinking.
The
gave us?
shaded area.
That's what I'm thinking. Dave, you look at that, you see that as being reasonable?
The numbers you have here?
Yeah.
Yes, do you have any way to separate state highways from town highways in this? Because
So, yes.
you lose jurisdiction on the state highway.
Yeah, so there, in the document, it says that, the stricter of the two, the state or the town, it prevails.
Yeah, we were just looking at these today,
Yeah.
down on Route 8, 445 was 40 mile an hour. Yeah, so, yeah, they seem reasonable, 200 feet roughly for a low volume road. Do you think you should have one for 25 miles an hour instead of 20, because a lot of your roads are 20?
25, so are mine.
I've seen 20, 30, 40.
I got,
Or are you talking to the chart up
You know,
above?
his chart's the one on top, right? Which one are you gonna use, the gray in the bottom or the,
no, I was gonna use
this table?
this one up here.
No, because the upper one,
That goes to 20 to 70.
Okay.
but maximum speed on town road you've got are what, 35?
Well, Jim, is this may be, stopping sight distance and not intersection sight distance,
I think this was intersection.
okay? Because this looks different than the table I was looking at today after our meeting down in Route 8.
Really? Okay. This is older too. This is 2011, I think.
In January of '23, they redid the highway design manual, DOT did.
Okay.
They substantially revised it.
Okay.
You might want to look.
I didn't find that. That was the newest one that I found, but I'm sure it exists.
Well, we all know people are driving a lot faster on the back roads today
Yeah,
than they
not
always
paying
did.
attention either.
So what are we looking at, this top section
No,
here?
you're gonna try to find that
Let's try
newer
to
one
get
and
the updated
introduce that?
I'll get an updated version.
And you're talking about driveway sight distance, intersection sight distance at a driveway?
Yeah.
Okay, there's a whole chapter on that in the new highway design. It's always,
That's where that came from.
well, this stuff, I can tell that that's where this came from. There's different, stopping sight distance could be like Crestwood curve.
No, I thought this was driveway.
Well, this is looking left and looking right.
Manual speed.
Yeah.
But, anyway, and then the other thing that, that we confirmed, today is,
Yeah.
I was measuring this with a 28-inch high traffic cone because it's what I carry around with me. But these sight distances are calculated for a 3.5 foot high sight distance, so I've got that changed on my draft, which I will.
All right, so you're gonna update that.
You gonna send that to us? Okay.
Then, really the only other big thing that came up when we spoke with the, fire marshal was, and then, Pete, you might be able to shed some light on this. It seems like fire apparatus is really designed to come off the road and hit a maximum of 5% grade.
Yep.
So, that's why we put if you look at 3.4, that's why we put 5% grade.
Yeah, so the problem with that is the angle of departure and the angle of
Yep.
approach.
Yep.
With a lot of these trucks, especially the municipal trucks down here, they've got a long overhang in the front, a long overhang in the back of the rear wheels.
So,
That's why you've gotta have the 5%.
so if you look at, kind of the second half of 3.4, said Public Works Director may grant up to 8%. I wrote that prior to knowing the, the 5% restriction for fire apparatus. To me, if it's a long driveway, you gotta get to a house, that 5% makes a big difference. If it's a tiny little lot, you're never gonna go up the driveway anyway.
No.
It doesn't make much
No,
difference.
As long as the structure's within, say, 150 feet of the roadway,
Yep. So,
basically. Because your
so-
standard hose length is 200 feet on any pre-connect hoses.
so that's why I figured the 8% could stay, because you know, I've got crowns in the road that are more than 8%, so
But it's maybe granted.
maybe, correct.
Yeah, so
Doesn't
that-
have to be.
Doesn't have to be, but it may be,
Yeah.
depending on the
Right.
site.
And then the other thing we wanted to run past the commission, 3.5, you know, no new driveway shall contain a portion narrower than 10 feet in width. So all the numbers in here, you know, the 12%, the 15%, the 20%, those are all numbers that we, as a subcommittee, thought were reasonable numbers, but wanted to see if you thought 10 feet was too wide for a minimum or too narrow for a minimum. We thought it was about right. And then, no driveway should have a grade greater than 15% along its length. The current ordinance says 14%. We went to 15 because it's your steep slopes, and what's the difference, 14, 15, you know? And then, it's okay to have sections of your driveway between 12 and 15%, even if it's a gravel driveway, but if it's exceeds more than 20% of the total length of the driveway, then you're starting to have, you know, if you come up with a driveway, you know, a little kicker, that's one thing, but if 20% of your driveway is that steep, we want it to be paved in that section. And then, you know, so these were the numbers that we came up with. You know, do you want that kicker to be 10% or 30%? 20% is where we kind of drew the line. Didn't know if anybody had any feelings.
Well, I certainly don't, because while I know what you're talking about, I really wouldn't know the difference
Yeah,
in terms of a 10% or a 15% grade. So if our engineer has taken a look at it, and our public works guy, and a few of these smart guys on the commission, then
does that seem to make
we're okay.
reasonable sense?
It sounds
I mean,
similar to what I've seen other.
What I've seen before is anything over 12% needs to be paved. Or 12 or above needs to be paved.
I've seen that.
And that helps us.
It helps us, but keep in mind, are we really only caring about the area in the apron? That might not be the part that's 12 or 15%.
Correct.
You know, and that's,
But it's gonna help them too, so, I mean,
right,
that was always what I've used in the past, anything over 12% has to be definitely paved.
yeah, well, that's almost every driveway that we see. So you're gonna take, to me, there seems to be, and again, as a driveway owner and a person that maintains a driveway, I look at mine, and, you know, we talked about this in the subcommittee a little bit. I think I fail in every single one of these areas, and it functions just fine. So,
Right.
you know, it's,
It's a happy medium.
it's right, you're trying to find a happy medium, and, you know, emergency vehicles, you know, an ambulance tries to come up your washboard driveway, and it's not paved on, you know, 15%. Now, is that a problem? Well, you live in it, it's your choice, you know, but, you know, at some point, there is a general public good that we're trying to accomplish here without being, you know, forcing people into paving where they don't need to, so, again, this is the number we came up with. To us, it seemed reasonable, and 12% is the number that.
That's the number, yeah, that's the number.
How about on the width thing? Again, I don't have any
10
preference.
feet's fine, that's, I
10 is
would,
good.
I'd leave it,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's too.
Most
too narrow,
driveways are 10 feet wide.
Especially when you're trying to get fire equipment in there.
The only thing I didn't see on that, and I just went through it again to make sure I didn't miss it, long driveways. There needs to be something in here for, pull-offs after a certain amount of feet, usually it's 500 feet. I mean, I had a driveway when I did my subdivision, it was 3,000 feet, so
Right,
every
yeah.
500 feet, there's gotta be a turnoff so somebody can,
Yeah, we.
Get out of the way.
We discussed that. I remember discussing that.
For vehicles to pass.
yeah,
Yeah.
In a driveway?
yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
Ambulance,
You're driving down a
Fire
3,000-foot driveway and you meet a vehicle, what do?
you're screwed.
You're not gonna back a fire truck up.
I got it, gotcha,
Yeah.
okay.
You
yeah.
need somewhere to be able to
Right.
pass.
Fire,
Right.
that should be a requirement.
We have
You need a pull-off.
driveways, wow, we have driveways.
I remember coming up with a
Well,
number.
we've got
for
three at Highland, at Lake Winchester, they're 3,500 feet long.
Wow.
No.
We did come up with a,
We did come up
we
with
did
a,
come up with that.
Did I miss it? Is it in there? Cause I didn't see
If
it.
it's in there, I'm not
I didn't see
finding
it.
it, but we did talk about that. I don't know if
I
we.
thought we talked about it, but I don't remember seeing it in here when I read it today.
I thought we actually came up with a number, like it should be this many feet.
I don't remember getting an actual number. Pull offs not to, you know, what, a maximum not to exceed distance of
500 feet.
500 feet?
500, is that?
Yeah.
Depends on how straight the driveway
Right, right.
Right.
Right. There again.
And with the hills and stuff around here, you won't get one very long.
500 is at least you get something.
Yeah.
Or a minimum of 500.
Minimum of 500
And then-
and to be determined by the planning and zoning
Yeah.
officer.
What number you under?
I haven't got a number for that, but
Oh,
I'll have to place it in.
Add it in.
Minimum 500 feet may be reduced by P and Z. Fair enough?
Yep.
Okay.
I have,
Whatever safe.
under definitions, you have a plot plan and also there's site plan.
Yep.
And I don't see where that's invoked except for in section 3.9, says Public Works Director or Planning and Zoning Commission CEO may at its discretion require an engineering plan. So
I think that's new construction, right? Isn't that?
prepared by Connecticut License for the driveway and its associated improvements
So,
under general conditions of construction. So which one is it, and what do we wanna say? Do we need a plot plan, a site plan, or engineering plan? Engineering plan's part of,
both of them are at the discretion of P and Z or DPW,
yeah.
right?
I think it
Or
says
does every, does every,
It
per-
says that somewhere, I just don't know where.
Well,
that-
just saying that under 1-10, you know, they should be submitting some type of a plot plan with their application. And at our discretion, planning and zoning may require, well, like an A2 survey.
oh, it'd be
So according to this, a site plan is done by a Connecticut licensed professional engineer. A plot plan can be done by a surveyor. So there is a difference.
I think the plot plan is really two-dimensional. You see that more with respect to zoning compliance with new construction setbacks and stuff.
Okay.
Right.
Site plan is set three dimensions. And deals with drainage and road control and all that stuff.
Right, so that should be under
So
that.
when you're talking about driveway reconstructions,
But I think,
site
Ad-
plan is what we
So-
need.
Site plan, right.
but I think Adam's point was that, there's nothing in the general text refers you back to when you might need those two.
Yep, yeah, so
Right, so we're saying there should be site plan under that.
may require plot plan, site plan, or
Site plan, because that's an engineered plan.
Yeah.
Right.
So under 3.9, we wanna say, at its discretion, require a site plan and or plot plan? Take out engineer plan?
I would just say plot plan.
I would say site plan.
Site plan.
Site
Plan, yeah.
Alright, that's what I meant, site plan, not plot plan. Bleh.
Engineered.
Alright,
Yeah, because above that's the water diversion, so you wanna have that engineered.
Site plan, is that what you said?
Yes.
Engineered site plan.
Yeah, plot plan is a surveyor. Site plan is an engineer. Two-dimensional,
so
three-dimensional.
where in the general text of requirements do we wanna say we need a plot plan?
It's already under 110.
Under definitions,
Yeah.
right? So we're kinda mixing up definitions and requirements, right? It should just be definitions up front, and then which should support your requirements.
Would there be a time where a plot plan would be the only thing? you
Well, under 2-2, where it says it's required, forms furnished by planning and zoning and shall be accompanied by a plan. So that's where you'd wanna put in site plan,
Which number?
2-2.
shall be accompanied by a plan, yes,
Plan, you
and
need
by
to-
a site plan showing
By a site plan,
the existing location
existing
dimensions.
proposed locations, dimensions, approximate grades of the driveway, any easements.
Yeah, we might have to go through this a little at a time to make sure we're not missing somehow.
Oh,
So you
we're
wanna put-
gonna miss something. I can guarantee that.
You wanna put site plan in there under 2-2.
Yes.
Site plan or plot plan?
Or plot plan.
Well, if we, see, I think if you're requiring a plan for a driveway that's being reconstructed in its original footprint,
Just a plot plan then.
that should be just a plot plan.
Yeah, I agree.
Where,
Plot.
where somebody, but to see now, we've been talking about adding cost to this.
Yeah.
So if it's being
Right.
done in its original footprint, do you need a plan?
And a plan can be as simple as a sketch for something that's just basic and
As
simple.
long as that's spelled out, that somebody can have a sketch.
Well, that's why it just says a plan and not a plot plan.
Or a site
If
plan.
you're keeping your existing driveway and you're only putting it back the same way but brand new, okay, you shouldn't need a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Any alterations to that could create other issues would need a plan.
Which one, a plot?
Yeah,
I
I
would
think
say
that's
a
right.
site plan.
Yeah, well, but Adam's point is that that's not clear in the application
right,
process.
right.
But would that be something that would be clarified by where you're making the permit application?
Well,
And
That would be
like,
determined by
somebody
the
would say to him, is this
ZO.
if you're just
Well, what's the-
repaving the driveway,
What's the permit application show on it now? Does it require
the
any?
application's gonna, right now, it could be anything from a sketch to an engineering plan.
Okay.
And that's not bad, you know, a lot
Right.
of people come in with driveway sketches, people hand draw them themselves.
Hmm.
Sometimes they come in and I go, well, okay, that's pretty good, but I need to, you know.
Well, and that's
Because I'm-
what
yeah,
we
so
need
you
for-
right there make
For
the
these regulations, that's
determination.
what we
So-
need for our planning and zoning office to
Well, you make that
have that
determination.
determination
complexity of
once
what
Like
the
you would any
application
other
comes
zoning
in.
Okay,
application.
right. So it's covered by the staff.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would think so.
You wanna make this as simple as possible,
Yeah,
and
I'm
have
So
teeth in the end.
two, leave it plain, as
Yeah.
it says now,
Yeah.
without any changes.
And that's then decided upon application.
But yeah, it should be put in there that, more in-depth site plan or engineered.
But that's what it says in one
Shall be
dash
needed.
10 and one dash 13.
That's
That
planning and
can
zoning.
that can be
discretion.
required by,
Yeah.
by P and Z and
the
or
application.
DPW.
Jeff's gonna have to go to the Jimmy Rollins School of Driveway Permitting, because
Right.
he's gonna have to learn what he wants.
Yeah, to my point is, 3.4, are we, plot plan, site plan, we're okay on those two? Or we're gonna take out the,
Two different things, so.
yeah, yeah. So are we gonna remove the requirements from the definition and put them in the text? Under site plan and plot plan? Or are we just gonna leave
They're in there, aren't they?
No, I-
Because
reinforcing
by,
there?
I think kind of what Charlene was saying, because of the way it's written in the definition, that